results on the Do Now quiz for Connotation. So let's just quickly go through this. I'm not going to go over the vocabulary because you can look that up. So question number 2 said, choose the word with the most positive connotation in the following sentences. So positive is good. They held a blank to bring attention to the issue. So a gathering is positive. A protest is a loud, raucous affair where people often get in trouble. The next one, you're looking for negative. So the kids explored or snooped around the office for clues. Negative would be snooped, right? Explored is positive, means you're looking for something, but in a positive way. And then finally, we have the choose the most positive connotation in the following sentences. The frustrated parent demanded or requested a meeting with the principal. Well, demanded is very negative. And of course, requested is the most positive answer. Okay, so now we're at the point where most people had trouble picking out the mood and the tone. So let's first look at this one that talks about mood. This test meant everything to Deshaun. If he passed, he'd be able to take the scholarship. If he failed, he'd be held back and his future would be choked. He'd stay up all night studying until the words blurred into meaningless letters. He worked with tutors. His girlfriend helped him study. He did all that he could, but the pressure was so intense. Now was the time to test. His palms were sweaty. His mind was racing. If only he could slow it down, his senses sharpened. He heard the clock ticking slowly but steadily. It was test time. So your job is to determine how he was feeling, right? Was he nervous, afraid, confident, or proud? Well, when I'm looking back at the paragraph and I see things like, he'd be held back and his future would be choked, so he doesn't want that to happen. But down here, when it talks about the pressure being so intense and that his palms were sweaty, his mind was racing, if only he could slow it down. This is an indication of being nervous, right? When people are nervous, they tend to break out in sweat and they can't think straight. And so that's why the answer is nervous as opposed to afraid. Afraid is more like you're afraid of getting hurt. In this context, he's nervous. And yes, he is afraid that he's going to fail, but the more proper word would be nervous, and especially when you look at the description of how he was feeling. And so just like we said in the last screen, the best phrase to answer the question right here being that his palms were sweaty. All right, let's take a look at this poem. I'm a lean dog, a keen dog, a wild dog and lone. I'm a rough dog, a tough dog, hunting on my own. I'm a bad dog, a mad dog, teasing silly sheep. I love to sit and bathe the moon to keep fat souls from sleep. I'll never be a lap dog, licking dirty feet, a sleek dog, a meek dog, cringing for my meat. Not for me the fireside, the well-filled plate, but shut door and sharp stone and cuff and kick and hate. Not for me the other dogs running by my side. Some have run a short while, but none of them would bide. Oh, mine is still the lone trail, the hard trail, the best. Wide wind and wild stars and hunger of the quest. So what's this poem about? A dog who longs to be loved by someone, a dog who is happy to be free and do what he wants, a dog who loves to sit in laps, a dog who gets tired from running all the time. Well, let's look at what he says. So he calls himself lean, keen, wild, and lone, and talks about how he likes to howl at the moon and keep people from sleeping. And right here he says, I'll never be a lap dog. So we know that this is not the correct answer, a dog who sits in laps, because he says, I'll never be a lap dog. And the way that he says it implies that he looks down on dogs who are lap dogs, because it says he'll never be a lap dog licking dirty feet, a sleek dog, a meek dog cringing for my meat. So in other words, he's never going to be begging somebody for his food. And then it says, another possible answer says a dog who gets tired from running all the time. Well, right here he says, not for me the other dogs running by my side. Some have run a short while, but none of them would bide. So he's talking about how other dogs can't keep up with him. And then right here he says, a dog who longs to be loved by someone. Well, right here in this sentence he says, not for me the fireside. So I don't want to be sitting in front of a fireplace, the well-filled plate, being fed at the same time every day, but shut door and sharp stone and cuff and kick and hate. So he prefers having to forage for his food rather than being given it at the same time every day. So he is definitely a dog who is happy to be free and do what he wants. What is the tone of this poem? Is he angry? Nope. You can see here by the way he talks about himself. He is not angry. Is he humble in helping others? Nope. He says here, not for me the other dogs running by my side, and talks about how none of them can bite or keep up. He's not turning around to go back and help them. Fearful of what the next day will bring? Nope. Here he says, wild wind and wild stars and the hunger of the quest. That's what he likes. Mine is still the lone trail, the hard trail. And then he calls it the best. So here we see that he is proud, confident, and self-sufficient, because he is talking about how he would rather tease the other dogs, howl at the moon, keep people from sleeping, upset people by running around and stealing their food from the other dogs and being wild. So what sentence or phrase from the poem supports your answer to part A? And remember, part A, we said he was proud, confident, and self-sufficient. So here, where he says that some have run a short while, but none of them would bide. In other words, I'm so good, nobody can keep up with me. All right. So now that we've taken a look at a couple of poems from the test, let's see if you can do a couple on your own. So here's the first one. We want to take a look at what the mood is from this particular poem. So just kind of ignore that up in the upper corner there. So let's read this one. Amar wiped the sweat from his brow. The sun laid into him as he trekked across the desert. He licked his lips, but there was no moisture in his tongue. His mouth was dry. His lips were cracked. He held his hand on his forehead to block the sun, but he still couldn't see the other sand dune. The waves of heat obscured his vision. Amar looked up and saw the vultures circling. He felt his legs wobbling. So first of all, vultures are birds that scavenge for their food, and they prey on dead bodies. So if he's looking up and seeing vultures circling, that means that they're waiting for him to die so that they can have food. And you see here that he felt his legs wobbling, so he knows that he can't last for very much longer. So if we look at this short story, we see that Amar is running. It's super hot. He has no water, but he needs water. He has no sun protection. And you know what it's like when you don't have sun protection. You're miserable. He couldn't see over the next dune. He doesn't know what's around the corner. The waves of heat obscured his vision, so he's starting to feel the effects of the heat. He's seeing vultures circling. His legs are wobbling. So how do you think he's feeling right now? So, you're right. He's probably feeling pretty desperate, pretty scared. Because if he doesn't get out of this situation soon, he's going to die. So, the mood of this paragraph would be desperate, fearful, any words along those lines there. Now, why do you think this? Well, again, like we said, he's desperate for water. It's hot. There are predators circling him already, and his body is about to give out. So all of these things tell you that he should be feeling pretty scared at this moment. All right, let's look at the next poem, or it's a poem about tone, and identify the tone. So let's pull that here. Okay, so this one is called Riding to Town. When labor is light and the morning is fair, I find it a pleasure beyond all compare to hitch up my nag, which is a horse, and go hurrying down and take Katie May for a ride into town. For bumpity bump goes the wagon, but tra-la-la our lay. There's joy in a song as we rattle along in the light of the glorious day. A coach would be fine, and in this case a coach is a car. A coach would be fine, but a spring wagon's good. My jeans are a match for Kate's gingham and hood. The hills take us up and the vales take us down, but what matters that? We are riding to town. And bumpity bump goes the wagon, but tra-la-la sing we. There's never a care may live in the air that is filled with the breath of our glee. So there's a few words in here that you may not be familiar with, so I'm going to go over those words and then read it again. So when he says labor is light, labor is referring to work. When he says the morning is fair, that's an old way of saying the morning is really nice, it's really good. To hitch up my nag, so he's hitching up his horse to the wagon. And to go hurrying down for a ride into town. So you can infer that he lives where? Does he live in the city or in the country? And then he says, bumpity bump goes the wagon, but tra-la-la our lay. There's joy in a song as we rattle along in the light of the glorious day. A coach would be fine, but a spring wagon's good. And so a coach, I'm sorry, I said it was a car, but a coach is a fancy wagon that's covered. So this wagon, like a plain wagon, is going to be open. A coach is going to be a wagon that's covered, and it's going to be fancier. My jeans are a match for Kate's gingham and hood, so Kate's outfit. The hills take us up, the vales, the valleys take us down. But what matters that we are riding to town, and bumpity bump goes the wagon, but tra-la-la sing we. There's never a care may live in the air that is filled with the breath of our glee, and glee is happiness. So let's read it through one more time. When the labor is light and the morning is fair, I find it a pleasure beyond all compare to hitch up my nag and go hurrying down and take Katie May for a ride into town. For bumpity bump goes the wagon, but tra-la-la our lay. There's joy in the song as we rattle along in the light of the glorious day. A coach would be fine, but a spring wagon's good. My jeans are a match for Kate's gingham and hood. The hills take us up and the vales take us down. But what matters that we are riding to town. And bumpity bump goes the wagon, but tra-la-la sing we. There's never a care may live in the air that is filled with the breath of our glee. So what is the tone of this poem? Remember, the tone is the author's attitude and is determined by the author's words. So the author uses words like, the morning is fair. He says things like tra-la-la. There's joy in the song, glorious day. And again, tra-la-la. There's never a care. They're carefree in the breath of our glee. So the tone would be, what do you think? That's right. So it's going to be happy, joyful, any words that match the meaning of those things. And I've already gone over how we know that, right? So by those particular words that were highlighted, that tells us what the author is feeling or what the tone of the poem is, what the author's attitude is as well. All right. So that is the end of this set of test corrections. Congratulations if you finished it and got the extra points to bring up your quiz grade.